It's something we all face as Americans. We face this conflict. You'll notice the wolves in government clothing is not just a play on a biblical passage. It's actually what we've seen throughout history. Thomas Jefferson recognized it and wrote in a letter to Edward Carrington. He said, "If ever the people become inattentive," tell me if you think that fits today. "If ever the people become inattentive, then you," Mr. Carrington, a good guy, "then you and I," Thomas Jefferson, also a good fellow, right? "If ever the people become inattentive, then you and I and the assemblies and the governors shall become as wolves." And that's exactly what we're seeing in America today. We have lost sight of protecting liberty and individual freedom, and we've fallen prey to the debt god and the manufactured money that comes out of Washington. It's time to stand up. As a county commissioner, Tom and I and Jim Millay see this every single day. The cogs that Michael was referring to earlier are lining the streets with gold. Actually, it's paper, but actually it's an electronic digit on a computer somewhere. And it's about time that we inform the public so that you don't fall prey to the false economics that are being generated in Washington. Thanks for coming here today. You've been a great group. I hope you have great questions for this team of wonderful folks.
Great. So if you're inspired to ask a question after you hear some of these, please fill out your card and raise your hand, and someone will come by and get it. Where do we get a copy of the law quotes that Ramona had on screen? You're talking about the water rights, Oregon water rights?
All of their quotes, mostly the laws, not Oregon water, but all of them.
You know, it's wonderful. Well, first of all, sign up for Liberty Scene, and as soon as we have that website launched, we're going to put all of that, and as much of that as we possibly can on the website, as well as all of our pleadings in our case, other cases that have been successful. We want to include pleadings. I'm diverting a little bit. So that attorneys, we want plagiarism. When there's successful cases, whether it's ours or somebody else's, we want plagiarism because there's been a lot of bad decisions out there. But if you're looking for something specific like the Federal Land Policy Management Act, the Forest Reserve Act, many of them are online. And you want to, sometimes if you just go to the Department of Interior website, you can get their Ask Forest Service, same thing. Try there, but you want the entire statute, and you want to read for savings clauses, and you want to read for reservation of civil and criminal jurisdiction, and read how that impacts your property rights, with that in mind. Can I help? Is that right? Does that help?
We had a lot of exact quotes for exact situations.
Oh, okay. Those are out of words and phrases. So if you look at Best of Right in the books, they're legal reference books called Words and Phrases, and you can get those out of there. And also Black's Law Dictionary.
Ramona, will you have those posted somewhere, or can you put it in one of the newsletters? Would that work for you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something about that? A lot of times we're smarter than we really give ourselves credit for, and so sometimes we just need tools. And attorneys usually prescribe it like Westlaw or LexisNexis, but I like using a search engine that has the Constitution. It's got state laws in it. It's got the United States Code in it, and it has all the Supreme Court cases, Ninth Circuit cases. If you know what they are, if not, you can do a search according to a word. Like if you could do vested rights in there, and you can see what the Supreme Court had to say about that. And if you want to write this down, I'll tell you where this is at. It's called Law, L-A-W, Justia, JUSTIA.com. It's a free search engine. Also, Cornell's law I love the way they have done the United States Code there and have laid it out. You could go to a statute or a statute there where it's codified. You can click on to the CFRs and it'll pull out where that law has given any kind of rulemaking authority and where you can find it. Now, it connects the rules to the law.
Perhaps that's something
That's
we
another
could,
course that I can teach, but if you can't find it that way, you can always go to the parallel table of authorities. Look up the CFR that they're quoting, and then you look over on the right and it'll tell you where the law is codified into. It's called parallel table of authorities.
and when Liberty and Property Rights Coalition website is up and running, you're going to find all of this stuff there. Okay, next question. Where do we get info on Agenda 21?
I'm a little biased
I think it's good.
with regard to my answer here. But since the year 2000, we had a website called freedomadvocates.org. And while there are a number of sources, an increasing number of sources for information on Agenda 21, this is one of the longest running and with the deepest reserve of information on Agenda 21. We've taken information from people all over the country and all over the world, really. And a lot of writings from people in Santa Cruz, myself included. And I think you'll get good information and reliable information from that source. It's been linked. It's a heavily linked website from other sources around the country. Soon, probably by the first of the year, we'll have a new site available. It'll be much easier to search and much better organized. I don't suggest you wait until then. Dive in now and begin to get yourself an understanding of Agenda 21 and a good dose of information on what it is that is special about America.
And over at Michael's table, he's got a lot of information on Agenda 21, including this pamphlet that he and his wife Joanne put together. Okay, this one requires a question, but I'll answer it. Will Danny move to Siskiyou County? Will Danny Martinez move to Siskiyou County? What is the difference between tribal water rights and BIA filing?
I did a quick read on the filings for the adjudication here on the Klamath Basin. And it appears to me that what the Bureau of Indian Affairs did was file a federal reserved water right on behalf of the tribe. And I, no pun intended, don't think that holds much water. But that is something that will have to be argued out through the court. I can tell you, with regard to the Forest Reserve, Federal Reserve water rights, we were able to beat those because we had that chain of title. We were able to document that our rights were vested and so forth. Danny can explain Federal Reserve water law a little bit better than I can.
Oh, okay. Tribal rights. I think what they're making reference to there is the Aboriginal titles of the Indians. Now, Indians under our system of law, because in this country, we recognize these Aboriginal titles. Now, Aboriginal title is basically a possessory right, similar to what ranchers have when they own the water. But when the government pays them for these rights, they really are extinguished. Now, the Federal Reserve water right only pertains to those rights within the reservation. A federal, under the Weeks Doctrine, which is what they're claiming under this Ninth Circuit case here, is that they're claiming that they have a blanket Federal Reserve water right, but that water right only applies within the reservation. If there's no reservation, then they really don't apply. Now, if the government has paid them for their aboriginal title, like they did to the Western Shoshone, there is no, they extinguished those rights. See, basically that was a sale. Now, the Dawes Act, which is an act of Congress that created Indian allotments in the beginning. They allotted certain parcels of land to the Indians, and they gave them legal title. They gave them a patent on it. Now, there was nothing that would prevent them from selling that. A lot of Indians sold their lands to whites, settlers or whites, and those white settlers or whites that have that allotment are entitled to the same rights that original Indian has. But the Bureau of Land Management, I don't see where they've got any right to be filing on behalf of an Indian or a tribe. And so, the Dawes Act was later amended, and those allotments after that were not, they would not grant them a legal title or patent, because they wanted to prevent the Indians from being exploited by the white people and acquiring their lands. So in this one case that Ramona pulled up, it was made reference to in the Adair case. Yeah, it talks about reserve water rights, it talks about reservation rights, and it talks about other rights. So we've got a situation here that we need to understand where those rights are. Because if it's Aboriginal title they're referring to, there is no Federal Reserve water right, because Federal Reserve water right can only be created when they create a reservation. That was made clear in the New Mexico versus U.S. case in 1979. You know, the government went in there claiming that because they created a forest reserve, they were entitled to a reserve water right. The Supreme Court said, no, you don't get that. You're not entitled to it.
Okay, it's 4:56, so we said we'd be out of here by 5. How many, if the speakers will stay another 15 minutes, how many people want to stay and do some more Q&A?
Keep going.
15 more minutes? Okay, great. Okay, and thank you, everyone. Let's see, when Water Master sends a letter telling us to turn off, for those who need to leave, please feel free to leave. When Water Master sends a letter telling us to turn off our wells, how would you respond? Danny or Ramona, when Water Master sends a letter telling us to turn off our wells, how would you respond?
Turning off the wells? Okay, they send you a letter to turn off the wells. See, you need to respond by asking them what their authority is for requesting that. See, in Oregon, I didn't read those statutes of Oregon, but in a lot of states, let's see, subsurface water is part of the surface water, unless it's a designated aquifer. But under water law, water ebbs and flows under the ground the same as it does on top of the ground. So it would depend, if you've got a vested water right there, or you drilled the well prior to 1958, they don't have any authority over that water. There's no jurisdiction over that water. It's free, but you don't know that because we don't have the facts yet. But if it was pre-1958, and you've got a vested water right. But you might ask them, do you have, what you might ask them does this apply to vested water rights? And then now you're waiting for them, because what you've done is, they've sent you a letter. They're engaging you. Now you can respond immediately and ask them questions for clarification. See, the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution gives you the right to know the nature and the cause. So that's all you're asked to do is, I got your letter and I'd like to know what the nature and the cause of this is. Can I ask you some questions? I said, look, I just need to know this before I can, we can settle this. I always agree to settle. See, that means good faith negotiations. It's under basic contract law. So I would respond in that fashion. I urge you guys to do a little research. And if you need help on it, Ramona and I are glad to assist you. You need to go back in time. You see, one of the common law doctrines is first in time is first in right. So if you can go back before the statute, they can't go backwards and try to extinguish that right. It's one of the common law doctrines of our system. See, the reason they prey on us is because we don't have enough knowledge to fight back. So that's the purpose of what we want to do, is to teach you how to fight back, to teach you how to be one of the we the people sovereigns with these unalienable rights. They're trying to take these rights away from you, but you don't have to give them up.
Who's willing to do that research that Danny just talked about? Only one?
Maybe I can answer the question. If whoever asked the question, I can answer it for them.
Okay.
So if whoever was asked the question,
Okay, let's see. Are we on to the next? There are 2 suckerfish species classified as endangered here in the Klamath Basin. I feel that the populations of the fish have increased, but the U.S. Fish Forest, USFS or G? Fishing Game, okay. U.S. Fishing Game and the Klamath tribes are motivated by self-interest for their continued listing. What is the process for removal of a species from the endangered status?
Okay. You need to petition for a change of the rule. And that's under the Administrative Procedures Act. That's what a lot of people don't understand is that they think that once the rule is in place, it's done. See, you can petition for a change in that rule based on the law. Well, a good grounds for petitioning and changing the rule is there's nothing in the rule that would protect a pre-existing vested right. And that rule potentially causes you harm and an economic hardship. So you always use that word economic hardship. That's one of the NEPA requirements. This is a lot of stuff we'll hopefully later on we can document for other people on for for your attorney or whatever it is. We'll once we get up and going and raise some money for this, we'll do the procedures and the documentation of these laws.
And the president, I'll add, the president of Liberty and Property Rights Coalition, David Spake, you saw the film earlier, one of his special interests is doing away with the Endangered Species Act or getting it repealed or revising it or whatever, but that's one of his pet projects.
Let me just comment on that. Special interests. See, in this country, in order to have standing anywhere in court or standing, that's an Article 3 requirement. You have to have been damaged. It was just like that Rosa Parks case that years ago where they wanted to challenge the civil rights or the state law that said that black people had to drive the back of the bus. but they really couldn't challenge the law, and the only person that would have a standing to challenge it would be somebody that was damaged. So Rosa Parks sat in front of the bus to get arrested. Now she had standing to challenge the constitutionality of that law. Now, in this case, for special interests, if you're being damaged, or any party that is being damaged by that, now he's got standing to bring an action or a cause of action. But the thing to do is get proof of collusion between the tribe and the Fish and Wildlife Service.
NGOs and the Fish and Wildlife Service.
So carry a camera and a recorder everywhere you go. Is there available funding sources, or are there available funding sources to help with our water rights adjudication contests against the tribes through your organization?
Well, we just got started. We've been funding it out of our own pocket.
Water to Klamath Reclamation Project. This year they denied water to Upper Basin irrigators. The feds pitted Upper Basin and Klamath Project against one another using the tribes. If the project refused to submit to tribal claims, tribes would again shut down project water. Victims of deeded water being withheld feel helpless and are going broke. Any suggestions?
Use your state's Administrative Procedures Act. File for judicial review. It's going to require some research of Oregon water law to do that. And part of judicial review, you can ask for injunctive relief. Now, normally the reason you're going to file it under the Administrative Procedures Act in the state is because you've got state agencies that are enacting or promoting federal agenda.
Question, how to stay out of IBLA? IBLA. Anyone?
Okay, the IBLA is the Interior Board of Land Appeals. It has to do with anything that's within has to do with the Department of Interior. Normally what they do is it's fraud. They'll issue an order and then they will appeal it for you. But under the procedure and under their own CFRs, it's only you that can repeal a decision. So it's a way of them sucking you into their court, and you don't know any better. Next thing you know, you've got this notice to appear to hear, and you didn't even realize you had it. So you've got to object and ask the judge to throw it out for fraud. It's fraud. It's only you can do that, not the agency.
Danny, when you were talking about Rule 3 or 4, what rule was that you were quoting? What rule was Danny quoting when talking about Rule 3 and 4?
Okay, I'm talking about the federal criminal rules of procedure. Rule 3 and Rule 4.